This is where cultivation excellence meets unfiltered insight. AROYA, Office Hours, Special Edition. I'm Greg Dunaway, taking you through the innovations and ideas that are shaping our global industry. Powered by AROYA's revolutionary approach to data-driven growing, we're going to bring you the brightest minds behind today's biggest breakthroughs. From cutting-edge solutions to market strategy, stay ahead in this rapidly evolving landscape. All right, let's welcome a true authority in the industry. Bryan Passman is known for his direct and insightful perspective on our most crucial asset here in the cultivation world, people. He is the co-founder and CEO of Hunter Esquire. It is one of the leading talent acquisition firms in the entire space. Chances are, if you're involved in any way, shape, or form in management, C-suite, all the way up and down from supply chain to exec, you've heard of him and Hunter Esquire. He's going to be blunt. He's going to pull back the curtain on the realities of cannabis hiring. I am so glad he's here. My buddy Bryan, welcome. Thank you so much for coming down, man.
Thank you. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Thanks for that great intro.
I could have done more.
I know you've always been a great hype guy for me. Appreciate it.
For sure. You deserve it. It is so fascinating to me. I think in thinking about this interview, Bryan, it is so interesting. You are one of the few people in cannabis who can sit in rooms where real decisions are made about people or hiring or strategy, and you have this third-party perspective. And in our industry, where on LinkedIn or wherever we constantly see missteps, I'm so excited to get your opinion on it, man. It must be really interesting for you to be able to have that third-person view on all of these big companies, their hiring, their mistakes, and their successes.
It's a cool spot to hold. It took a while to earn it. You have to obviously do some trust earning to get there. I think how I got there was just by being authentic and straight up, and luckily I was just able to continue being that way. It's just easy for me. I don't like being anything else. I'm not smart enough to remember all the bullshit I might say. So. Yeah. So then being trusted with sensitive information and carrying it to conversation without revealing sources or oversharing. Certainly benefited us and companies that partner with us for hiring.
What? Let's do a little bit of background for everybody. How in the hell did you become one of the leading, not only talent but strategy guys out there? How in the hell did you get to where you are?
Well, when we started this, it was just really fortunate timing. First of all, in 2017, it was, I think, fairly shortly after the evolution from the friends and family hiring in cannabis focus shifted to trying to professionalize the process and go with third parties. And to my knowledge, there weren't any other retained executive search firms around at the time. And when my wife and I started this with a few others, we were bringing a lot of search experience. It was like my 19th year doing it. It's all I've ever done since graduating. And we had a few others who had some pretty deep experience, of course, from all other industries. So, we started with a lot of background in relevant industries, highly regulated industries, in CPG, food and beverage, for example, and signed up a really, really big, notable MSO right out of the gates that loaded us up with really juicy searches. And it just gave us a good excuse to chat up other leaders in the industry at that time. And then, it just snowballed. So I don't mind sharing. It's like, I don't care about sharing secret sauce. And if someone doesn't know this, they should. If you're in retained search, executive search, the best business development tool is just treating your searches professionally. And, if you have opportunities to go out and talk to people about opportunities, do it in a conscientious, caring, professional way. And you'll only place one person per search, but you'll build your network, obviously, but also hopefully your clientele, because you convert candidates to future hiring authorities because they enjoyed working with you in that way. So they'll trust you to represent them when they need to hire.
So when this strikes me as something that must have been interesting for you. So if when you had, I think you had like something ridiculous, like, 15 years in other much more developed industries. So what was it like as you started your first forays into cannabis in terms of seeing where hiring was when you arrived to kind of be like, hey guys, can we try and do this professionally?
Yeah. Uh, is pretty wild. I got I got to very immediately and around the clock do a lot of that advisement, talking about, okay, we should do this, we shouldn't do that, and just doing a lot of like pushing rope and nudging people to do things, which was really good because you get into like comfy ruts when you're in an established situation, right? Like we know people in other big companies and established industries. A lot of times the mandate is just don't screw it up, and you forget some of the basic blocking and tackling. So it was good to have to try to like communicate in a polite, clear way all the things we should be doing. That's like table stakes for other people. But it was a little bit jarring, but also really fun, like really invigorating, because it wasn't just the same old stuff. Like just we're going to run the same playbook. We know it's going to work. Just rinse, repeat. And we were lucky that a lot of our first clients were very good with it. They were hiring us because they wanted talent, but also they wanted that. And some things I had to pull back on, like we had this thing called an accountability doc we used to use for a lot of years back in the day. So if we're working with a big food or beverage company, when we started a CFO search or otherwise, we'd say, okay, this is what you said you wanted. This was the process we said. This is what you're responsible for. We're responsible for all the mutual accountabilities. We're all going to sign off on this, basically. Something we could revert back to. And that was something I had to do away with after a few dozen times sending that to clients. Because they could get pretty lengthy, because when you have a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of push and pull, a lot of conversation. And I eventually had to just ditch those because it was just like another administrative task for people in cannabis that
Right.
it's like, look, I get it. You're going to hold us accountable. We're going to hold you accountable, but I don't want to have to initial 8 pages of notes and whatnot. So, stuff like that had to go away, and we had to lighten up and loosen up a little bit, but we met in a good, happy place for the most part.
Yeah. So you get started, and I have to imagine that you get there. You're working. It sounds like you hit the ground running with these MSOs. And as we know, MSOs do struggle with churn and hiring. And I am so curious, like, what is it that is this like tennis court volley back and forth of people seemingly going back and forth with MSOs, or seemingly never being able to keep the churn down? Like, what's your read on that?
Yeah. Well, there's the there's this very strong desire to hire someone who's perceived to have been there, done that, right? They're going to come in eyes wide open. They're not going to freak out when they see all the warts of what being in this role at an MSO is like. And, they did it exactly or even kind of sort of at a competitor. So therefore they're a fit. And a lot of times it's just, well, we need a body in the seat because this person just quit, or we just had a fire, whatever, the seat's open and you want to hurry up and get someone in it. So, it's just a lot of that rapid hire, because we know we'll just rapidly fire the person as well if they don't work out, and who cares? So, a lot of people have settled into this is a grind, and people are going to churn and burn even if we put a lot into it. So what's the point of putting a lot into it? We have other things to do. Let's just, kind of hope for the best. So we know there's a lot of hopium being smoked around the industry, and I think it's just that. And so when we get inserted, we try to slow it down and challenge that, and help hiring companies try to understand, okay, was this person really actually successful doing the same role at a competing company, and or maybe hire someone that didn't exactly do that or did it at a company you don't like, because there's a lot of that too. We're never going to hire from that competitor because, they suck. We don't hold them in high regard, so we're not going to hire. But of course, not everyone at the organization is bad. There's always some gems in there. So I think it's just a lot of, we got to go. We need someone in here every day the seat's open. Just, there's stuff piling up. Let's just hurry up and get it done. And we'll boot them quickly if they don't work out, who cares?
How, and so in other industries, I think you and I both have been lucky enough to kind of dabble in other industries before cannabis. In your estimation, like, do cannabis companies get how expensive turnover is? I know you get it, but like, do they, can you help people understand why turnover is so goddamn expensive?
Well, yes, some companies get it. I think probably every day there's another company waking up to that fact. Then there's the balance of, well, we understand it's expensive, but also time is our most precious resource. So we kind of just have to roll the dice and, maybe just eat that additional cost because we don't have any more time to give to trying to do it better, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, again, first thing with churn is time to backfill the position. So hopefully you're doing it at least sort of kind of right, and you're involving key team members. You're either spending on a third party to do the search for you, or you're asking your leaders to take away from their day job where they're already living in time triage to go do the search. And that's a lot of times where we get called in now from the SVP or chief blah, blah, blah. Is like, okay, I try to do a solid for the company and fill it on my own. 3 months later, I'm tired of talking to unqualified people. Just please help me, or I'm tired of being left at the altar. So there's that. But then, then there's just all the HR blocking and tackling, setting up payroll, getting someone their computer. I mean, it's a whole laundry list of other things, getting legal involved in, an employment agreement. So I think, I forget what the math is to figure out the monetary. It's a percentage of that person's cash earnings. It's a pretty decent percentage is the actual monetary cost. But I think for people in cannabis, not that everyone's rolling in it, there's certainly this capital crunch and difficulty carving a path to profitability. But ultimately, it's the time cost for everyone. And then the opportunity cost of not having more people working together more and gelling better together as a team, and flowing and vibing better together. Right.
And I think you brought up an interesting point too, which is like, I know there's people who are listening to this that are probably, they're either they're in the industry looking for a new job, they're trying to break in the industry. Let's just rip the Band-Aid. Like I from my seat, over at Colt, looking at price compression, I've got a seat on, hey, I can tell you right now what the price per pound is in Arizona. I can tell you right now, there's one independent cultivation going under every single month in this state. You, my friend, have a national and even a global eye. Like, let's just rip the Band-Aid for people. What are you seeing as far as hiring trends, if any, at this stage in the market right now?
For us, it's been very heavily focused on finance and operations leadership placement. There's just, I think, a very, very broad realization. Like, we've really moved away from just focused top line. Who cares about all the waste? Just, as long as revenue is strong, we can go raise more capital if we need to. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. So finding very operationally oriented finance leaders, new CFOs, controllers, and so on, that could partner well with operations to really, reduce SG&A and dig into the organization and partner to figure out ways to turn a profit or improve profitability. And then hire ops leaders that are very OpEx oriented. Not necessarily, it's not really an ask for like Lean Six Sigma certified ops leaders, just more OpEx operations leaders who obviously don't mind getting their hands dirty and really understanding what's going on. You could always sprinkle in other growth leader roles and roles in HR, and we've done a couple of recent regulatory and quality searches, but for well over a year now, heavily skewed, probably 75-80% plus finance ops leader.
Yeah, that tracks. And then, that's great. Hey, if you're an OpEx and finance leader, great, booyah for you. What are you not seeing, Bryan? Like what has changed?
Not seeing a heavy focus on really building out the HR function. Unfortunately, that spiked some years ago and then fell off. I think what a lot of us can agree on, what we see is when times get tough, those in people operations and marketing, unfortunately, are a lot of the first to get cut. Whatever reason, those are seen as luxuries, unfortunately. So we had a lot of fun building HR teams for a long time. That was great. It took a while to get there, and now it's been a while since we've had a heavy amount of HR searches. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because even some of our best clients are bare bones with their HR organizations, and their organizations really struggle as a direct result of that because people just feel less cared for in general when that happens. Also, something I've really been rooting for, we've helped recently on a couple, something I've really rooted for since day one to do a lot of is chief of staff searches.
Interesting.
That real like kind of connective tissue, someone that's multifaceted, multifunctional, that can work across departments really easily, and be that like smoke detector for the organization, make sure really key projects are happening on time, being that herder of cats and pusher of ropes. They exist out there, but in really low numbers. And I could count on one hand how many of those searches we've done. I would love to do those all day. Those just people that are qualified for chief of staff roles are typically really cool to work with. Also, they're really energetic, outgoing. People don't mind talking to them, actually seek them out to talk to them because they're pleasant and great. Those are some of my favorite people.
I want to talk to you about something. I've had the unique experience, Bryan, of when I was looking for a new role, I got the opportunity to kind of see how you work from the other side. I got to do that kind of interview as a candidate. I have been so curious about that because I feel like when you're talking to a candidate, you might get just as many insights from those discussions as you do from a CEO talking to you. Like and I'd hate to generalize too much here, Bryan, but it feels to me like when we use the word culture in cannabis, we use it a lot to describe the fun part of culture or the legacy guys or all that. But there also is this aspect of culture that you deal with, the culture of companies in cannabis. And I don't know about you, but if you read LinkedIn every day like I do, or it feels to me like there's a lot of broken culture in cannabis. Do you agree with that as far as it comes from the company side of that business culture being broken?
Well, I want to say yes and no, and it depends, ... right? For sure, there are some very, very large, very notable companies that we will never work with. I know their cultures are incredibly toxic. They also happen to be some of the best paying companies in the industry. That's oftentimes referred to as your hazard pay or danger pay. I've had conversations with very high-ranking individuals that have left $300,000 plus salaries with nothing else lined up because they didn't want to exist in that very toxic world anymore. And I fully respect that. We have some hiring authorities that can't really grasp that. Like, that's crazy. And do you really believe him or her? And yes, because I've done stuff like that before myself. But I say yes and no because I think that, some companies, oftentimes I'll be on the phone with people and I'll hear about their comments on some companies having terrible cultures. And when you really dig into it and you ask them, well, what, really, like, what's the right culture fit for you? And why were they not a fit? A lot of times it ends up being tied to, well, that company was trying to be very KPI centric. They were trying to hold people accountable. They really wanted to measure people's success. And they didn't create the very, cannabis-y culture that the person was looking for because they were trying to run it like a real business. Certainly a lot of companies, overcorrect on that and start running it like it's a very sterile, non-caring environment. And a lot of times you get that with bankers at the helm. But, I think some companies in the industry get a bad rap around their culture because they're just trying to run a legitimate business and get to that profitable place so they can continue employing people and keep going and have more runway for everyone. I like talking about culture and when we're recruiting and placing folks in terms of culture ads. Is this person a culture fit? It can be a slippery slope because maybe some aspects of that culture are being worked on and we're shifting because we just went public and now we're trying to professionalize. So yeah, they're a culture fit for what we've been, but we're trying to change the culture. We get called into that a lot. So we look, for people that maybe sometimes are hard to vet for fit because you might have some OGs in the organization that are trying to hire people that will help them create a new cultural DNA. So like helping them understand, okay, well, maybe you didn't really vibe with that person, but they're going to help you get to that more professionalized place. Of course, people have to like each other and be able to genuinely say, yeah, I would be excited to work with that person on both sides of the equation. But it's I think like the culture contributor aspect of that assessment, a lot of times for us is more important than just so they fit to what we are and have been.
Yeah, and so you dovetailed nicely into where I wanted to ask you about this. I think one of the questions that really could be helpful for some of our listeners out there is, you've been doing this since 2017. You just did a really eloquent diagnosis on kind of that culture aspect. What are some of the other really costly mistakes that cannabis companies make when they're hiring or thinking about hiring, or like where does it go wrong, Bryan?
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. I'd say probably most of it stems from just not being great on communication and collaboration. So I don't, so we don't try to spend several more hours here listing out all the
Right.
what happens. It's just being communicative amongst the hiring team before embarking on the search, having all the negotiations, hashing out, I know you want this and I know you want that. We're not all going to get what we want. There's no perfect candidate out there that can make us all happy. Let's horse trade and figure out what must-haves and nice-to-haves are and really, really agree on it, not like fake agree on it so we could just get going. And then if you're working with a third-party recruiter, to be clear about that, or ideally have them involved in those conversations, and they can help everyone navigate it, or just witness it all and absorb it all. So really hashing all that out, and then collaborating well through the process, and ensuring that everything is being communicated transparently to the candidates, and not BSing your way through that process, so that you can land the person you want, and then they'll quickly realize they were bait and switched. People make a lot of really, really important decisions and develop a lot of emotions and feelings around their decision to take a new role in the first day or two in it, and it's really hard to reverse any of those negative emotions around it. So it's just just being like honest and transparent about what's good and not good here, and what's all the trash this person's going to walk into, and being honest about what to expect from this person. Um, Saying like, oh, just because we're going to, pay this person a healthy comp package, and we're going to pay Hunter Esquire or someone else a nice fee to find them, and saying, okay, that means this person should single-handedly save us because we've invested so much, is obviously just unfair. And I think a lot of unfair expectations are put on people when they're brought into cannabis businesses these days, because everyone's in some degree of a struggle. So just being fair, honest, transparent, communicative, collaborative. So much of the other just dumb stuff that breaks down the retention part of it after all of that could just be resolved if you just take that more I guess human approach to it.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I was also wondering too, Bryan, like, and again, you'll laugh when you hear this question because of our shared history together, but there are a lot of young companies in cannabis. There's a lot of young CEOs in cannabis. There's a lot of youth. And I think there's also a little bit of this idea that, that maybe cannabis is a little too young and I guess my question for you is, do you feel like our industry kind of shies away from bringing in people with other business experience to the detriment of some of the organizations you work with? Is that bias real?
So again, yes and no. Going back to something earlier we discussed, we had to learn. We learned an important lesson. Coming into this, a lot, myself included, for sure, probably worst of all, was very used to looking for pedigree. If I was recruiting for some really pedigree organization in some category of whatever the industry was, we wanted to go get someone who was doing it at another pedigree organization. And when early on, when we had leadership searches, and so it's evolved. Early on, there wasn't a lot of this talent that had come in yet. It was happening, but not in droves like it's happened since 2017. And so we wanted to go out and get the best of the best people with all types of great education and rigor, working in really legitimate world-class organizations. And a lot of it was, well, you're trying to professionalize and standardize and put process and procedures, so let's go get you someone that comes from like a GE or some other whatever, like a Toyota. We don't recruit from automotive, but as an example, a very process-oriented organization.
Right.
And then really the hard way learn the lesson that actually a lot of times that person is not the right fit, because they may have opportunities to create a little bit and build a little bit here, but a lot of times it's just tweaking and just exist well in this construct and just don't screw it up. And if they had to build and create, they had a lot of resources to do it. They weren't, it wasn't, the same. So there was really that learning that if we're going outside of cannabis, we really should a lot of times go get someone from like a really gritty and grimy, type of environment.
I love it.
Yeah, like really just like sweatshoppy type of stuff. And it was fun to watch. Like some of our placements were a lot of resumes that old Bryan would have looked at and said, heck no. And then we're placing these people and they're just thriving in the industry because they're
going and killing it from the grimy places. I love it.
Yeah. So that we learned that. I'd say that's, yeah. So hopefully that answered it, because now my sickness is kicking in and my brain fog is.
Oh, no worries. You more than answered it. It's so funny. I love hearing this because, if you're in the thick of it, sometimes your perch up here is so much better. Do you? Let's offer some concrete advice as we head towards the tail end here, Bryan. And before I ask you a couple really magic wand questions I want to get to, but so you're someone right now who's listening to this. You're you're looking for a new job, you're wondering, hey, is Hunter Esquire right for me? And again, I'm not trying to flood your inbox or whatever, but some concrete things for people to consider right now, given the market. What right now, if you are in OpEx or finance and you have those skills, um, is it a good time for you to be coming if you're coming from outside the industry? Are people preferring people from inside the industry? Is it a little bit of both these days? What are you thinking for candidates that are out there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would definitely give a caveat to anyone outside the industry that's in a really good place and has a lot of people depending on them and wants some decent amount of stability and security in their career to absolutely stay away and just like if you're really if you're really feeling the pull, but you're in a good place, stay there. Just it's brutal right now. We know, uh, and and if you're in the industry, I know you're probably in at least a little bit of an unhappy place, if not a complete place of misery. I think that's the spectrum right now of where people are. I mean, we do have some clients that are like really high agency organizations, and we've helped them hire like extreme high agency type A folks that are really enjoying just crushing together and depriving their health together and just like working their tails off creating and having fun, and their families are fully signed up for it. But that's not for everyone. And a lot of the searches that we've had are with these new groups coming in, picking organizations up out of receivership, asking us to help them rebuild their leadership teams. And some of these special committees, that's a new experience we're getting, is working through receivership acquisitions, rebuilds, and special committees. That's a challenge in itself, probably a whole other conversation.
Is that just to, sorry to interrupt you, but is that one of the only places where you are? This is a really jacked up thing to say, but is that one of the only places you're seeing growth? Is that like there are people coming in and kind of picking up the cadavers and trying to reanimate them? Is that where you are seeing some action?
Yeah, mostly it is. Yeah.
God, it's too early in the morning to have a drink. Oh my God. Tell us more about that. I don't think a lot of people know about that.
Yeah. So receivership is cannabis bankruptcy, right? That's
yep.
And then it's wild because there's in sometimes this really lengthy period where you're acquired but not really. The transaction hasn't closed, and there's special committees appointed. And thankfully, in the cases we've been involved in, there are special committee folks that have been in C-suite roles, so they understand operating company challenges, but a lot of times not. It's just straight up bankers who are kind of trumping everyone else's opinion on what we need. And they're working from a place of, just looking at the balance sheet or some Excel spreadsheets on what they need. So that's been tough, kind of like brokering those in it who are going to work with this person and the special committee folks who are in charge now, but are going to step aside. And then placing leaders who don't actually know who their boss is when they join, and you're going to report to the special committee, and it's going to be someone after that, but who knows?
Good luck.
Good luck. And in those cases, we do get a lot of asks to hire from outside the industry, which was different because leading up to that, we sort of went to, all right, there's all this great talent. So many people have entered cannabis. Why go outside? Let's hire from within. Just try to do it the right way. And we do our best respectfully to say, well, we don't think we should go outside. You really need someone who's going to hit the ground running a little bit more effectively and understand what's going on there. And then, so usually what we end up doing is running a search, really kind of two searches, looking for both. We're building a slate of great athletes from outside of cannabis and then great people we know from inside. And usually on the front end, everyone's like, wow, I love that person from all these people from these pedigree companies outside. But after you dig deep 2 or 3 conversations into it, usually there's consensus like, okay, we need to focus on these people that understand our struggle more so than
Dude,
otherwise.
that is fascinating. I mean, I just can't get over like what's a high growth area in cannabis? Oh, people going to bail out companies in receivership. There's a lot of growth. Oh man.
Yeah, and then you're asked to do that, right? You're asked to come in and do that, and there's not even like all of the uh, abilities for HR and the board and everyone to offer you all the rewards for this work, because usually everything's on hold, and it's forget about an equity package in case that might be worth something one day. A lot of times it's questionable even what your short-term incentive is going to be. So it's like it's exciting because you're coming in to transform this organization and be a part of
Right.
the new blood, but with a tremendous amount of risk and like very little, if any, financial reward. It's really more of the personal reward, like just putting your thumbprint on something and just making a really demonstrated impact in an organization that, hopefully you could talk about years from now was saved from just disappearing off the cannabis map.
Right. Well, hey, look, if you save a continent, that's a great one for the old resume. Hey, I saved Atlantis. A couple more, Brian. I know I've taken up a ton of your time. I do really want to dive into one thing that we kind of skirted over. If you are a CEO in cannabis, and you're trying to make organizational change, and I know that you've seen this. What are some of the times when you've looked at that CEO and you've said, for one reason or another, you've made a classic mistake, or you're going to make a classic mistake, or I've seen this playbook before? Or what I'm trying to drive at is that, like, I know for a fact that you've dealt with some interesting CEOs and you've seen some of these classic mistakes. Like, what are they that maybe there's a CEO out there from an equipment vendor listening, or maybe even a grow, hell, maybe Justin, our CEO in Colts listening. Like, what are those mistakes that you're like, guys, like, don't do this?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with, I think I have like probably two or three things. I'll start with what's probably the most obvious is just empower your people to do the damn job you hired them to do. Like, trust them and give them the support and whatever resources you can to do the thing you hired them to do, and don't hamstring them after you bring them in to do this thing. That's it. Then uh, really, really subscribe to I'm going to have to give like unconditional, copious amounts of empathy to these people, and I'm just going to have to suffer. Like, if you're cannabis CEO is probably one of the loneliest gigs around, except for when you're out on the circuit on stage and everyone's kissing the ring. But when you're back in the seat, it's lonely. It's horrible. We've joked many times I should change my title to professional ledge talker offer, just thinking about the conversations I have early, late, and weekends with CEO friends. It's a horrible, lonely, unforgiving place, and you just have to own that. However you can cope with that, just eyes on the prize. We're going to succeed if I just keep letting myself get abused and just loving the ones I'm with and always making them feel cared for. Uh, and then I guess, kind of tied to that is, I think a big fail is also being brutally hard on yourself, like really publicly, not all the way publicly to those in your organization, accountable for your screw ups. Never pointing fingers. Obviously, some people screw up. You have to have a tough conversation, and sometimes you have to let people go. But owning every single mistake of your own, like big time owning it, and being obscenely apologetic and killing yourself to make it right for the organization and those directly impacted who have to clean up your mess. Just, yeah.
Yeah.
That I've seen some really, really good CEOs get to some really bad places because they failed to do that. it's not all that hard to do. It's, kind of humbling. I think, it's easy to get an oversized ego as a cannabis CEO, especially if it's your first gig and you're really young and you're hotshot and things like that. And of course, not everyone who's young and first time leader roles like that. There's plenty of good young people who are willing to own their shit, but just really owning it, like falling on all the swords that are aimed at you.
I love it. I love it. A couple more, and then we'll get you out of here, Bryan. I have one for you. What you are, again, so uniquely positioned. You've been in the C-suites. You've heard like professional alleged talker offer. That's hysterical, dude. So if you had a magic wand, whether it's hiring, HR, whatever, if you could change something about this industry, what in the world would it be, and how would it impact everybody?
I mean, yeah, if we're talking about magical Narnia land things, I would create a world where it was just less hard, where, something triggered 280E going away and, maybe a reschedule or deschedule action that just made it easier so that people could breathe. I want to say just do better by your people. But I don't want to say that. I don't think it's not fair, because there's a lot of people out there that are struggling to lead their organizations the right way, not because they don't want to, because they've already deprived themselves of their health. They've deprived their families of their time. They have kids and spouses that don't see them. They're killing themselves to do it. They're working 18, 20-hour days, day after day, and they just can't get ahead of it and get breathing room. Of course, there's, people that would go to Coachella and Burning Man, all these things when they shouldn't, and they fall behind for those reasons. I'm not talking about those people. To those people, stop doing that. Just be in your job. Don't do those things anymore. But I would magically try to alleviate some pressure so people could just be in it more and have more big picture, and have conversations that enable you to set strategies that will hopefully still be effective more than several weeks or months down the road, instead of always having to revisit and retool everything and never having time to really care for your people the right way and put other things in place that the business needs.
My last question for you, my friend. I know Hunter Esquire is growing. I know you're looking at adjacent industries as you guys continue to scale, continued success. What's next for Hunter Esquire?
Yeah. We're, I think some real traction in cannabis is catching, where people are realizing, okay, it's insane to say I'll never do anything else or touch anything else. And some people are diversifying what they're doing, even within their cannabis organizations. So, that really resonated with me. I've had a lot of those conversations with people banging their heads, talking off ledges. And a lot of times I've said, just don't be insane. There is life outside of cannabis. A lot of us don't want to do anything outside of this, but sometimes you just have to. You could come back to it. So for us as a family that's really into eating clean and trying to stay healthy, and when I first got into cannabis, I thought I was getting back to health and wellness, because my original search career was 15 years in med tech and medical device and biotech. So I thought I was getting back to something like that. I think we could still call cannabis health and wellness, retail, ag, a lot of things. But, for us, it's broadening the health and wellness umbrella and, working with functional beverage, plant medicine. We do have clients in psychedelics. That's, again, going back to my old days working with companies that pursue FDA approvals for products. So that type of stuff. We have friends in the gut health space. That's really important. I think, a lot of us are realizing that's, your gut is really your brain of your body, and we need to do better taking care of ourselves in whole ways, not just feeding our endocannabinoid systems better, but, feeding our whole selves better. So just good for you food, beverage, vitamins, supplements, gut health stuff, probiotics, even My wife and business partners really into skincare and biohacking and life longevity stuff, like red light therapy and other things, which is, probably moving towards some FDA approvals as med tech stuff. So it's really, we're early innings of figuring out that. We're just casting a wide net. It's going to be fun to meet people in those other spaces who also mostly love cannabis because, again, it's a health and wellness option to, alcohol is the most obvious call out. But yeah, people that
you hear that, everybody. There is a world outside of cannabis that we can explore. We're going to drop some optimism in here, Bryan.
yeah. I mean, TBD if moving around those communities is as fun as hanging out in the cannabis community. Probably not. Maybe we're going to find out.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I know you've got a bunch of candidate meetings and CEO meetings and everything else that you're doing. So thank you for meeting with me, my friend. I have loved it. I always love catching up with you, shooting the shit and hearing the state of the industry. And most importantly, just some really solid lessons for everybody up and down the organizational chart today. So very much appreciate it, my friend.
Awesome being here with you. Thanks for having me. It was fun.